welcome everyone. It's great to have you all here. And this is NEM Carleton's Women in STEM panel. We are partnering with OSPI for this event, so thank you to OSPI, and more on them in a bit. So my name is Bailey, Bailey Lenahan. There's two of us here, and I am the NEM chair at Carleton University. So NEM falls under CSES and specifically the VP academic portfolio. So Bailey, Noel, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is also Bailey. I am CSES's VP academic this year. So as part of NEM falls under my portfolio, I've worked with Bailey to put together all of the CSES events that we've run this month.
Like I was saying, this event is part of CSES. CSES stands for the Carleton Student Engineering Society. We are an organization that has been committed to serving the undergraduate engineering student population of Carleton University for over 35 years. We represent the student body through a variety of academic, professional, and social events and resources with the goal of advocating for Carleton engineering undergrads in both inter and intra-school matters. So before we begin, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. So before we begin, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are coming to you from Ottawa, which is in the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We respectfully acknowledge the past and present traditional owners of this territory and their unique role in the life of this region. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and play in this territory. So now is just a couple notes on etiquette for during the panel. So if you have a question for our panelists, please type it in the chat and it will be addressed towards the end of the evening. Please mute your microphone during the panel or when anyone else is speaking, so we avoid background noise. Feel free to turn on your video at any time, and please keep the call chat respectful and on topic at all times. So here's our agenda for this evening. Right now, we're doing opening remarks. After this, we'll be moving on to introductions so you can meet all of our panelists. From 6:15 to 7 p.m., we'll be running our panel questions. So I have a list of, I think, 5 pre-written questions that all the panelists will answer. From 7 to 7:25, we will have a Q&A from the audience. So that is your chance to send any questions you have in chat for our panelists, and we'll read them off in order. And then at 7:25, we'll wrap it up with a couple closing remarks. So our panelists joining us this evening are listed here. We're going to go through each one of them one by one, and you will each be given a chance to introduce yourselves. So first up, we have Victoria. Victoria, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria. I came to Canada to do a master's degree in computer science. I was out in New Brunswick where I got a chance to work in robotics, and we had a lab where robots were running around, wireless signals. So it was really cool. And then during that time, I did a co-op in what is now Nokia. And after that, I came back full time. I've been in Nokia, in R&D, in a couple of different roles, trying to understand a little bit what we do, since it's such a broad company. And right now I'm enjoying my position in like overcoming the challenges of our solutions and helping our customers be happy and take the most out of our products.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Victoria. We'll now move on to Rosemary. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Thanks, Bailey. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosemary Takach. I have a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electrical from Carleton University. I also have a Bachelor of Education degree from Queen's. I'm currently working as a manufacturing process development engineer here at Lumentum, building our wavelength selective switches that are used in optical networks, which brings me to my history in tech. So I've had over 10 years of experience in telecommunications, working in both optical and VoIP networks, doing both verification and then moving into more integration type roles, and working with cross-functional teams, at times even across continents, which has been amazing. I did take some time off after kind of working at Nortel for 10 odd years and then getting switched and sold off to another company. Took time off with family and raised my kids, and now came back working with Lumentum and doing process dev work. Thank you.
I am muted. Thank you so much, Rosemary. And next up, we have Joanne. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joanne Kim. And many years ago, I graduated. I actually had 2 degrees. The first degree is in math and economics. It was a double major at U of A. And then from there, I went on and did an electrical engineering degree from McGill. But back then, the computer engineering was actually like a subset, a specialization in the electrical engineering. So I actually kind of have a computer engineering degree from there. And then, I lucked out and I graduated just when the first high-tech boom was starting. So I came to Ottawa and I got a job here at JDS Uniphase, which is actually now rebranded as Lumentum. And then after working there for a while, I as well, like Rosie, took some time off, had some kids. And then when I returned to the workplace, I actually initially went into other fields. So I did catering for a few years. And then I had a position in the utilities field. I worked for a company that inspected pipeline. And then the opportunity came up where I could return to high tech. So now I'm a senior reliability engineer at Lumentum. So we basically just test products to ensure that they, can withstand industry standards for aging, mechanical tests, and such. So, yeah, that's where I'm at now. Thank you.
All right. Glad you could join us tonight, Joanne. Next up, we have Erica. Go ahead, Erica.
Hi, everybody. My name is Erica. I am a civil engineer graduate from Carleton. I graduated in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. So the pandemic started around March. I graduated in April. So last couple of exams I took right on the pandemic. I work for Stantec. Stantec is a consulting company. And I've done 2 club terms with them in the past, one in structural engineering, geotechnical engineering, and I am currently in their community development team. So I work with land development, new subdivisions, parks, anything urban planning related you can think of, I work with. So you can only imagine how busy I am with the housing market, how it is. We are very, very busy. And in my time away from work, I like to volunteer in events such as Go Eng Girl and Go Code Girl with the Faculty of Engineering and virtual ventures. So that is me. Thank you.
All right. Great to meet you, Erica. Angelica, you're up.
Hi, I'm Angelica. Just like Erica, I graduated in 2020. So quite an interesting beginning to my career. I work as a manufacturing engineer at the Canadian Banknote Company, and so it is what it sounds like. It's secure printing, so we make banknotes, but also other ID products, so cards, ID cards, passports, stuff like that. And so I also am now the director of outreach at the Society of Women Engineers Ottawa in my free time. So I like to kind of advocate for the continuation of women in STEM past just graduation.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Angelica. Rachel, it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Rachel. So I graduated from Carleton University with my bachelor's in science in computer science. So I only did 1 year of mech eng, and then I switched to computer science. So I may be a fraud, but I'm currently living in San Francisco as an engineering project manager. Previously, I was a dev in a couple different startups in New York, and before my current company, I was at Neuralink working on brain-machine interfacing. So I was on the implant team, building out the implants. There's 2 divisions, the robot and the implant. So the robot would implant the implant into a human. Now I'm currently at Pronto AI, and I'm working on autonomous vehicles. So what we do is we take trucks and we retrofit the truck and send them off to wherever they need to go. So in my free time, I like blogging. I do a lot of hot yoga. I love backpacking, clearly by this photo. My partner, and I have a cat named Gandalf the Grey. So that's my life in a blurb.
Yeah, that's a really good cat name. Okay, Brittany, it's your turn.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I also graduated from Carleton in 2021. I've worked at Sienna for almost 4 years, and this includes my first 3 years as an intern student and currently now as a full-time employee. When I first started at Sienna, I started off in web dev, and then from web dev, I changed into platform development, so making tools that the engineers at Sienna use to accomplish their tasks that they need to do. And by the time I got to my last placement as an intern student at Sienna, I did security, and that is what I'm currently doing. So by the time I finished my internship, I got hired on as a software engineer in security. Some of the things that I like to do is on my free time is fashion. I'm really into fashion. Fun fact, I used to work at Shoppers Drug Mart as a makeup artist because I was really passionate about makeup. And I also used to do scouts and Girl Guides, and I was really interested in camping and outdoor activities. And I like to hang out with my friends and my family and do a lot of fun stuff. And that's a bit about me.
Great. Thanks so much. It's great to meet you, Brittany. Aparna, I hope I'm saying your name right, but you are next.
Yes, you said my name right. Hi, I'm Aparna. I have a bachelor's in engineering, also known as applied science, from Queen's University. And my degree is, or was, in computer science, but the general option. So computer hardware is what you would call it. And I also hold a master's from Carleton, from the TIM program. That's the Technology Innovation Management program. So I did my bachelor's, graduated, started working at Alcatel, which then became Alcatel-Lucent and then Nokia. And I did my master's while I was working. So I went to school in the evening to complete my master's degree. I've always worked in the network engineering field. So I started off as a support engineer working on IP routers. And now I manage a team of network orchestration and automation engineers. And our focus is on dynamic edge network automation. That's the latest thing we're working on these days. So we deliver professional services in a consulting capacity to customers. I'm passionate about the field that I work in and promoting this field, especially to women who are just starting off their careers. We are definitely an underrepresented group in the workforce. I am always trying to promote and hire women and looking for female candidates who would be interested in network automation type roles. And I'm excited to be part of this panel and engage with you more.
Awesome. And we're very happy to have you here. Yeah, so that's it for our introductions, and we're going to move into the panel portion. So how this is going to go, I'm going to read each question out, and then the panelists, if they'd like to share, are going to raise their hands using the raise hand function, and then I'll call on them as we go. So the first question for tonight is, who or what inspired you to go into the engineering field and why? Sorry, I saw Rachel's hand first, if you'd like to go, Rachel.
Yeah, that's okay. AV and AV, hard things to solve. So I think this is a fun question because I actually went to virtual ventures as a kid, and then I volunteered and was a counselor at VB, which is insane. So I think like being exposed to, women engineers early on was really empowering for me. And seeing that women could go into STEM and build really cool things I would say was an initial entry point. And my dad's an engineer too. So I think growing up, he always like encouraged me to go against the grain and question things and question how things are built and work. So I'd say it's like two-pronged, my dad, and then I'd really say the VB camps at Carleton. I'm a big advocate for them. So that's what I would say to your question.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. I saw Angelica's hand next.
So in high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was good at math and decided that, hey, there's good job prospects in engineering, so might as well go into that. But I also have this kind of like foundational memory from when I was like 6 years old or something. I was playing in like an after school program or daycare with like Connect, and everyone was building blocks and stuff. And I guess I've learned that if you kind of curve them, they can look prettier and cooler. So I made like a whole mansion thing. And one of the caretakers was just like, oh, like offhandedly said like, oh, you could be an architect or an engineer. And that was kind of the first time that I was like, oh, like I'm creative, I'm smart. Like, yeah, I could do that. So that's one of my earliest memories, I swear.
Oh yeah, thanks for sharing. Brittany, you're up next.
So one thing that I guess was like the spark that like really made me pursue like in the engineering field is that I wanted to be a hacker so bad. I thought like in the movies, it was like the coolest thing ever. So that's what kind of got me in the door. And I had no coding experience. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't really know what engineering was really about. Even though I had a father that was in engineering, but like I didn't really exactly knew what it was. And so I applied to Carleton and I got accepted. And then, yeah, from there, it just went off. And I guess for me, it's the security that driven me to where I currently am at now.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. Joanne, you're next.
Hi. Actually, there are a couple things that inspired me to go into the engineering field. The first one was actually, so during my first degree, I saw this poster for WISE, which back then, it was Women in Engineering, or Science and Engineering. And the keynote speaker was Dr. Monique Fries, who I believe was a professor, or still is a professor at Carleton. She really opened my eyes, to hear her when she spoke. So, and because I'm a little older, I think, than most people here. This was kind of in the early 90s, maybe even late 80s. So there weren't many women or men for that matter, speaking on this topic at all. And so, to hear her speak kind of like, yeah, like there are female role models out there. There are female, scientist leaders who are also leaders trying to inspire other females to enter the field. And the second one is a little bit more tragic. And that was actually the Occult Polytechnic massacre. I was actually in university during that time, and I'll never forget the day, when that happened. It was just awful. And, there was fallout from it. But, at the same time, I think it really inspired a lot of women to say, hey, you know what? We deserve to be in STEM. We deserve to be in engineering. We deserve to be in science. We deserve to be heard, period. And so, it just really fueled that, lit the fire and fueled it to get me in. And so that's why for my second degree, I actually went into engineering because I thought, I can do some damage here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Rosemary.
Thank you. So I guess mine's a little bit different. I grew up in a family that had no engineering background at all, but we were very creative, and we were always either building things or making things. So I think that's where part of the push for me to go into something that was a bit more creative and something that was would end up with something that you would come out with that you've built. And that also kind of pushed me towards different high school courses, right? So I was doing things like drafting and the mech shop and that sort of thing that a lot of the other girls that were my friends weren't doing. So then when it came to grade 12, grade 13, and trying to decide where am I going to go for university, the natural fit was engineering only because the versatility in it. And I knew that I wouldn't be pigeonholed. That was one thing that I didn't want to happen, is that I didn't want to have a single career aspect. I wanted to be able to have one, I guess, training, right? So going to school and being trained and having a door open where I can go into multiple different directions. And I didn't need to be pigeonholed into a single infrastructure of some sort of field. And I felt that was the best opportunity to give myself and have a door wide open to be able to look at all sorts of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Aparna, it's your turn.
So perhaps not the expected or textbook answer in my case. In my case, it wasn't inspiration. My career just fell into place. In grade 10, I wanted to be a vet. In grade 12, I did my schooling in India, and around grade 12, I was good at science and math. I liked programming and I was very good at it. I wouldn't say I was the best at math. I actually hated math, but I could get it done, and I got good grades in math because it was the harder I worked, the more I practiced, the better I would be at it. So I could get good grades in math. I don't say I enjoyed it, and I don't think I still do, but I can get it done. And so I dropped my dream of being a vet, and I applied to a bunch of engineering schools. I got one of the offers I received was from Queen's in Kingston, and that's how I ended up at Queen's. They had a general option in the first year, and I chose to specialize in electrical and computer engineering because I went to a robotics lab in my first year and found that fascinating. At that point, I still thought that I wanted to be a video game programmer of some sort, but my direction changed through the course of university, and I decided to specialize in microelectronics by the end of it. And then when I started applying for jobs, there weren't a lot of new grad jobs in hardware engineering in Ottawa or anywhere in Canada at that point that I qualified for or that I applied effectively for, I guess. And I landed up in network engineering. I love the field that I work in right now. But even now, there aren't too many degrees that say network engineering in the title. So I would say that my career fell into place, and it was just a series of events that went in the right sequence to lead me to where I am today. And I'd say the inspiration was hard work and the ability to get something done if you try hard enough that led me to where I am.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting how we all take different paths to here. Erica, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I actually did my elementary school in Venezuela. That's where I'm from. And from grade 6 and on, you take a course on drafting, and you have to learn how to draft in paper and everything, like the ruler, pencil, the whole thing, make a title block, the whole idea. So that's where my passion of drafting and designing, I guess, originated. And then later on in school, I same as Angelica, I was good at math, I was good at science, so that kind of put me towards this field. And my dad's also an engineer, so what a great model to have, right? A role model, than my dad. So that's how I ended up here.
All right, thanks so much, Erica. I think that's everyone we have for this question, so we'll move on to the next one. So this question is, what would you say has been your biggest accomplishment so far in life, and how did you achieve it? So this can be personal, professional, whatever it means to you. All right, I see Angelica has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll get things kick-started. It's a bit of a deep question, I suppose. I'm kind of viewing it from more of a career perspective, just because of why we're all here. But I recently got accepted to present at CC West's biennial conference. And so it's the Canadian Coalition of Women in Science, Engineering, Technology, and Trades. And so through my volunteering with the Society of Women Engineers, I've been kind of doing a kind of side job with an ecosystem of various diversity groups with relation to STEM and STEM adjacent fields. And so we're presenting on our experiences and our research, and it's kind of really exciting, and it's kind of something that I've been able to now brag about at work, so it kind of makes me look good. So yeah, that's not something that I necessarily thought I would do so early in my career, but I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Rachel, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Rachel.
I'm muted. I do that a lot.
Me too. It's okay.
So I guess it's kind of two-pronged, but I think, when I moved to San Francisco, I moved knowing two people, one of which is no longer in San Francisco. And for this job at Neuralink, and I didn't know a lot of people with a suitcase. And I think there was a moment I was in like the OR room and we were putting an implant into a pig. And I stood there for a moment and thought, how am I in this room right now? Like, I feel like my entire career, I felt like an imposter. And I'm sure a lot of women on this panel would agree that at certain points in time, when you're in a room with men who, maybe don't look like you or don't validate your opinion, there's lots of times where you don't feel like you're good enough. And I think at that point in time, when I was there and I was sitting in the surgery room, I thought, this was through hard work. Right? No one handed this opportunity to me. No one, handed my computer science degree to me. No one moved me to San Francisco and had to figure out all the logistics. It was hard work. And that was something that I could sit in and recognize. So I would say like moving to San Francisco and initially working at Neuralink was probably one of the biggest defining accomplishment in my career. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. Aparna, you're next.
So I actually just want to follow up on a point that it's not an answer to your question, Bailey, sorry, but I want to follow up on a point that Rachel mentioned. So she mentioned standing in that room with putting an implant in a pig, which sounds very cool and interesting, and I really want to know more. But my question is about how she mentioned the imposter syndrome. And before I knew of these questions, right, I was thinking about, well, if I have to introduce myself and talk about something, what should it be? And one of the things I was considering talking about is the imposter syndrome, which is something that a lot of us face in our careers. And it was mentioned earlier. So I want to dwell on that a little bit, because I think it relates to a lot of us in our jobs, the jobs that we're going to apply to. I see lots of people nodding that have their cameras on. But for those that are not aware of it, right, it's that point where you believe you don't deserve what you have, or you say things like, and I just said it in the previous answer too, well, things just kind of fell into place. No, they didn't. They fell into place because you worked hard for what you have. You earned it. It's part of your achievements, but as women, we tend to brush it off and ignore it really often. So I wanted to call that out. And, the reason why you were in that OR was because you earned it, and you probably worked 100 times harder than everyone else to get there. So sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know your question.
No, that's quite all right. No, that's really interesting. It's a very good thing to talk about. Yeah, like as someone mentioned in chat, like it's something that I feel like women have to deal with a lot more. So it's a very important topic. Brittany, I saw your hand next.
Hey, so for this question, when I first saw this question, I guess in the email, it was, like I said, it triggered the imposter syndrome kind of in me. Until now, it really made me reflect on all the things I've accomplished. And when I look back on the things I've accomplished and like where I started from to where I am now, I think like the biggest accomplished so far that I have achieved right now in my current career is like all the opportunities that I got at my current employment at Siena. And because when I first started, I started as an intern student full time. And usually you start like either it's a year or 4 months in the summer. And by the time the 4 months in the summer happened, I didn't feel like I deserved it when I got there. And then by the end of the completion of that, then I was offered to go part-time, and they kept me on for a year. And then from that, I just managed to, I guess, like all these opportunities started coming from it, from like working hard and just putting myself out there, to the point that now where I am, I managed to not only meet amazing people throughout my journey, but I also got to end up to where I was hoping to end up as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Brittany. Rosemary, go ahead.
So similar to everyone else, when I first read that question, I was like, my first tongue-in-cheek kind of answer was, well, I survived the downturn when the bubble burst back in the early 2000s. So the fact that when I started at Nortel, by the time our division got sold off, probably half the company had been laid off. And that was we went from, I think, 11 different campuses to three main campuses, I think, by the end. So that took a lot of hard work, right? Like, to be able to be someone who was depended on and was counted on for doing their work and all that kind of thing, and contributing to the different projects. It's an accomplishment for sure. And you still have that a little bit in the back of your head, like, was it really that important though? But some other stuff that I did get a chance to do too was back in the early part of my career, I took a 6-month break and I decided to do some volunteer work. But it was computer type volunteer work, where we were sent off to third world countries to set up computer networks and teach computers, and kind of get the different companies or groups of people who were in the third world countries up and running. So that kind of gave me a flavor of wanting a job that felt like it made a difference and that you were helping. And I think that kind of parlays into, as you get older, volunteer work and that kind of thing, and making sure that you're contributing not only to the company that you're working at, but also outside. So doing that community outreach and trying to make a difference in that aspect too.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting opportunity. Thanks for sharing that with us. Victoria, go ahead.
Yeah, so like everyone has said, this is a really hard question. I think for me, it's trying to inspire others, trying to pave the way for others. So, in cases in which you're in maybe an uncomfortable situation, or you are surrounded by people that maybe don't agree with you, like the others were saying, be that person that raises their hand, be that person that speaks up, so that you make it easier for the next person coming up. I think the same way that people have done that for me, I think that would be my most accomplishment. And I work to try to do that. You can do that, volunteering, you can do that in your work. You can maybe like pull up the chair and have someone in a meeting that's been quiet, maybe ask them what they think about it. Like just think about everyone else around you and how you can make a difference in them, and try to inspire them to speak up and raise their hand.
Yeah, that's great, Victoria. Thank you so much. If we don't have any other answers for this one, we will move on to the next question. So seeing none. So the next question is kind of similar, I think, but it's, what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced in your life so far, and how did you overcome it? So again, this can be professional or personal. I see Brittany. Go ahead, Brittany.
So the biggest challenge I faced, at least so far in my career, was actually my university experience. And the biggest thing was fitting in. And when I first started my like undergraduate, a lot of the people that got accepted into software engineering had some sort of coding experience, and I didn't. And because of that, it was people were quick to judge and kind of brush me off as if I wasn't going to make it or I wasn't good enough. And so that was one of the biggest things I had to face. And how I overcame it was over time. It was definitely not like an overnight thing. And I failed courses. And but over time, I started putting myself out there and I met the right people and I kept with those people. And from that, the people that I surrounded myself with, but also not kind of like changing my perspective on how I looked at the situation of either like proving people wrong or like working hard really helps. So because I didn't know how to code, well, how did I overcome that? I got up early. I went to school early. I made sure to be at school by 7:30 a.m. the latest. I would go and study for hours until my class started. I went to class, took my notes, went back to studying, and I put 110% into it to make sure that I was going to overcome it. So I guess just not giving up was really how I like overcome that challenge that I faced in my undergraduate. And a quick disclaimer, I was going to answer it in the other question, but I'm actually not a hacker. I kind of do, I guess, the opposite, which is like defensive and like using security stuff to build security tools.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I know a lot of participants we have here tonight are students, and it's we all definitely know how hard school can be, especially for STEM. Joanne, go ahead.
Hi. First, I just want to give a shout out to everybody on the panel here. I love hearing all these responses and everybody's experiences and everything. And actually, that's kind of like to this day. It's actually sort of, the younger females that are coming up, they actually really inspire me because they're so bright. It's actually scary how bright you guys are, right? And how determined and how, focused you guys are. So just quick shout out to all the panelists here. I think it's great. But going back to the question at hand, the biggest challenge, to be honest with you, for me, was actually coming back to the high-tech industry. I took I was probably away from high tech for a good 10 years or so. Even though I had worked in other industries, like coming back to high tech was super scary. First of all, the industry had changed a lot since I'd last worked in it. And as well, Lumentum as a company completely changed. Like there was none of the products that I used to work on or were familiar with existed anymore. They had all been sold off. And so, all the products now being offered by Lumentum were much more integrated circuits and modules and everything. So I was like, again, the whole imposter syndrome, right? I'm coming in cold. Well, to me, in my head, I'm coming in cold. I did have, because I worked at JDS back then, I was familiar with photonics at least. So a lot of the lingo I, remembered and photonic concepts. But, learning about integrated modules, completely different, group stuff to learn. Anyway, so, but, people were very kind and they've been very supportive, and I think the one difference I find coming back sort of as an older woman, I was not scared to ask questions, no matter how stupid or anything. I put myself out there. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even try to fake it. I was like, okay, help me here, please. Like, and people have been so kind, and so I very much appreciate working here. And it's been both actually, truth be told, both men and women have been great. And so I think it's always good to when someone reaches out to you to be as supportive and helpful as possible. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely agree, especially being at Lumentum. I've been there since September, and it's very welcoming. People are always very happy to help, which is great. Okay, Angelica, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess my most challenging time also came in university. In my third year at Western, which is the school I went to, you can go into an internship for your fourth year and then come back to school. So you work for 16 months in between your third and fourth year of school. It's pretty common, and I thought that it was something that I would want to do to get more applicable experience. But my parents were super not supportive of it. They had very traditional, like, you finish your degree in 4 years, then you get a job, like, focus on that later. And my parents paid for my school. And so I felt it very difficult to go against them. And on top of that, I suffer from depression, and it went undiagnosed until this year, where I had this pressure. I had completely burnt out because I was very involved in student organizations. And then just everything was happening at once. Could not take it. And what really got me through, and then because I was suffering there, my parents wanted to completely I'm originally from Ottawa. They wanted me to transfer to Ottawa U, even though I had this support network at Western, because they wanted me to be close by, because they're still my parents, they care for me. So what really got me through was my friends convincing me to stick to my guns, that I know what I'm doing, I know what's best for myself. And then taking that year of internship was so invaluable, not just for my career, but just to get myself out of kind of academia and to realize, hey, I actually can do this as a career. I can make it. It was my first experience working in manufacturing, and I'd always been like, I didn't restore vintage cars growing up, so maybe I can't do this. But then I worked building like circuit boards, and I'm like, oh no, like I know manufacturing. I'm smart. I'm resourceful. I've got this. And so, yeah, really listening to my own inner sense is what really got me through. And it's really hard to not question yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I know burnout is something a lot of us can definitely relate to. Victoria, go ahead.
Yeah, it actually ties really well with what Angelica was just saying. I would say the biggest challenge for me has to realize my own value. And it kind of ties together with everything that we have been discussing. And how did you overcome it? There's really not a recipe. It really depends. For me personally, it was a coach who basically changed my life. And, just pointing out the obvious. Sometimes it's stuff that you see, that you have in front of you, but you don't take it for what it is. So sometimes you need someone to point out the obvious and let you realize, like, the situation that you have in front of you and why that is. In this case, I was considering a couple of job options, and she was like, well, clearly, I mean, if you have options, like, you must be doing something good. So trying to, like, accept the fact that, yes, I am valuable. I bring all these things to the table. Otherwise, none of this would have been happening. So believing in yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's on a similar train as what a couple of the women have said so far, but I would say it's like advocating for myself. I think, even advocating for a raise, right? Asking for the money you deserve in a job, negotiating. I think there's still a time where I know I'm competent at what I do, but there's also all these other more human level aspects that you have to deal with, right? I've personally had bosses who have harassed me, male bosses who have harassed me. And I think it's really difficult sometimes to navigate that scenery and advocate for yourself, advocate for the help that you need, and advocate for other women. I think that's a huge thing, right? I worked in a lot of startups before I moved to San Francisco, and I think there's definitely a lot of issues in terms of
seeing only women on certain fields or on certain teams, and they would be harassed by certain people. And how do you navigate that in a startup, right? How do you navigate that in a seed stage startup when there's like 20 people? So I think learning how to advocate for myself and learning how to advocate for other women was something that I'm still working on. But it's something I really encourage, especially for negotiating for the money and the PTO and the time off that you need. I think, especially here in Silicon Valley, so many people like switch jobs all the time. And something I would consistently see and hear is all the female counterparts to me would never negotiate or never ask for what they deserved. And all my male colleagues at like Google and Facebook, they're always like, why didn't you ask for 20K more? Why didn't you ask for XYZ more? And it's like, oh, because do I even deserve to be in STEM, right? Which is a whole different philosophical topic. But I think advocacy, not just for yourself, but for the woman around you, and knowing that there's not just one chair for a woman in a room, right? We can bring other women in. We don't need to be catty in terms of like, I've been the only woman for a while, so like, should I bring other women in? No, there's always room for more chairs. We should advocate for each other. We already have to deal with enough. So I would say that's been my biggest challenge I've dealt with in my career.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective for sure. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I don't see any other hands on this topic, so we will move on. I think I skipped one. Yeah, there we go. So next question is, where did you see your career going after university, and has it followed that plan at all? Aparna, you're up first.
Short answer, no. Remember I said I wanted to be a vet? So definitely not. My degree was in computer hardware. I work in network engineering. But what I want to say is that your initial plan might not work out, but sometimes it's a good idea to go with the flow to a certain extent and try something new. Try something that wasn't part of the original plan and see if you like it. I started off as a network engineer, and now I work in network automation. I did not want to code. I do not code in my current job, but I work with a bunch of people who spend all day coding. So I need to understand it, although I don't work in it. So it helps to explore a little bit and widen your horizons beyond what your initial plan was. Just because you don't stick to the original plan that you have doesn't mean you won't succeed. So my career has definitely not followed the plan that I set out for myself. 5 years ago, I wanted to work in network design, but now I work in network automation instead, and I enjoy what I do. So I think it's important that you find the field that you work in interesting, challenging, fascinating. You wake up every morning with this giant to-do list that you want to tackle, rather than thinking about, oh, my list is way too long. So you need to look forward to the fact that you have so much to do and it needs to excite you. And that's what's important. And if you don't follow that original plan, so what? As long as you're enjoying what you're doing, does it really matter that you didn't stick to your original plan? And another point I'd like to bring up is very rarely do our careers follow the initial books and learning that we get from university, because our experiences in the workforce tend to be quite different. They might for the first couple of years, let's say for the first 2 or 3 years, you had a passion and a specialization in your fourth year undergrad or graduate project, and your career for the first couple of years might follow that specific technical domain. But if you work in high tech or a fast-paced technology field, chances are that what you learned in university versus what you work in 5 or 10 years from your graduation date is going to be very, very different. And that's all right. You just got to go with the flow and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Even on co-op.
You are on mute, Bailey.
Oh, I'm not now, I don't think.
No, now we can hear you.
Yeah. But I can definitely relate to that, as like being on co-op, it's very similar. Sometimes you take the jobs you can find and they're not always related to your degree, but it's always good to have experience.
But Your degree teaches you how to learn, which is the most
Yes.
important thing.
Absolutely, yes. But yeah, thanks so much for that. Brittany, go ahead.
So going back on the hacker topic, which seems to spark a debate, I see. So long story short, I'm not a hacker. I have no idea how to hack. And I come to find out that coding is very different from the movies. It's not the same. But what that did help me, the idea of me wanting to at the time be a hacker, is it actually sparked my interest in security. And when it took me 4 years to get to like the security course, because in your last year is when you learn about security and all that stuff. And that's when I really found like the area that like I find very, very interesting in the world of software engineering. So like some of the security things that I do is essentially like using some tools in current like for example, encryptions, or like setting up like rules of like different like users on some sort of device of like who can access what amount of information and all that stuff. So unfortunately, I'm not a hacker, and I don't think I would want to be a hacker just because of ethical reason, but I do try to do what we can to, preserve data, keep confidentiality, and all those things that are important. So yeah. And I look forward to see what is to come in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Joanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add to what Aparna and actually yourself, Bailey, were saying about, I would encourage all students like to do as many internships and co-ops that they're comfortable with or are able to do. That's where first of all, you gain a lot of work experiences, which is always a plus when you're applying for your career job or whatever. But it also really gives you insight into what you would like to do, the types of teams you want to work with, the type of manager you want to work with. So there's a lot of like also soft skills you can gain from this experience. And because I actually, I did an internship and I did a co-op. My internship, I actually did in speech recognition many years ago and then I totally flipped and went to the other side for my co-op, and I did an analog hardware. And then in the end, I ended up working at JDS, which was a photonics company in high tech. So it kind of took me all over the place, but it gave me a lot of exposure to a lot of different industries, a lot of different technologies. And I think, everyone can kind of use all of that to build upon and learn from. And so I highly encourage, and to be honest, it doesn't even have to be in the STEM field. Like I think any sort of work benefits everybody, right? Because sometimes you can tell, like, when a new hire or a student comes in and you can sort of tell that they've never worked at all, like not even at McDonald's or whatever, right? So it's always something that I highly encourage everyone to do. So I just wanted to add that. And yeah, no, my career, I had no idea I'd be in Ottawa in high tech with 3 kids in that minivan. So it's kind of but again, as Aparna said, you kind of go with the flow too, right? Like, there's a lot of different factors that come into play when you're making these decisions, and you can just do what you can given the current set of circumstances and everything that you're living. So, but it's all good. In the end, it's all good. Thanks.
Yeah, that's really, really great insight. Rosemary, go ahead.
So I echo the same sentiments that everyone has kind of mentioned already. Especially what I found for myself is that piece of paper that says I graduated from university with that Eng degree, it really just tells the future employer, I know how to learn, and I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to do the work, and put the effort in to do it. Also, and I really hope people aren't shy or afraid to apply for positions, when they're reading through them, if they look interesting, apply. The worst thing that could happen is that the employer says, no, you don't have enough experience, or we're not looking for the type of skills that you have. But maybe they'll look at your application and they'll say, oh, she could be a really good fit, or he could be a really good fit, right? And then interview you, and maybe there'll be a different position that you might fit into a little bit better because you lack the experience that they need, but they're willing to take a chance on you and try something out. I had that happen a couple times with some other positions that I was working at, and if I hadn't have taken that chance and taken that risk and applied, I would have never had the experience. But yeah, so my my career did not take the same route that I had thought it would. I originally, when I graduated, thought that I was going to go into kind of radar and antennas and that kind of telecom work. But optical networks were hiring, and it was a huge boom in optics. So I went into that. And then being in a bigger company is a little bit easier sometimes, because you can kind of walk around and just start talking to people in the coffee line or something, and get to know them and strike up conversations and figure out what they're doing. And if it sounds interesting, you might actually be able to kind of sit down, have a chat with them and see what kind of stuff you think you can do or you want to do in different groups. That was one of the ways that I transferred into, I went from optical into to VoIP networks, which are totally different things. But I had a couple buddies that were in there, and they would talk it up and tell me all about the different cool things that they're working on. And eventually I said, you know what, I think that kind of sounds like fun. So I want to try that too. And it makes the transition a little bit easier because you kind of know what you're walking into. But yeah, I think that was all.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, guys, I don't know where my video went, so I'll try and fix that. But in the meantime, Rachel, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm really agreed with what everyone has said on the panel. I think something I've realized is it also comes down to control, right? We think if we go this path, I will be XYZ. So if we have a level of control, or if we can plan out our 5 years, therefore my life will be perfect. And we all know that's not how life works, right? But I think coming out of university, what I ended up focusing a lot more on was my own like intuition and aligning with myself of what do I want in a position, right? I think partner Joanne had mentioned this, which is like, you know, what kind of manager do you want? What kind of culture do you want? What kind of environment do you want to be in, right? It's really no use to be solving an incredible problem, but you and your manager don't work out at all, right? So I would say, you know, aligning with what you want, focusing on your own curiosity, working on a lot of interesting problems. Don't box yourself in, right? I think multiple people had said apply for lots of different jobs. You know, I worked on brain machine interfacing, and now I'm doing autonomous vehicles. Like those two things have really no overlap, except that they involve like mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, et cetera, right? So, you know, to answer that question more, I really had no idea, but I focused on networking. I focused on getting to know myself better and what I wanted. And I focused on being driven by my own curiosity. You know, what problems do I want to solve? You know, do I want to work in climate change? Let's aim for like jobs in that area or internships in that area. Do I want to work, you know, with neural networks? Go in that area too, right? I would say being guided by curiosity and figuring out like, yes or no, do I like this or not, is more important than boxing yourself in and thinking, I need to complete this 2, 5, 6, 10-year plan.
I have this question, but kind of a question I want to add to this. So we'll make it like a 2-part question. The first part of it is, so have you faced any specific challenges in your career due to your gender? And then kind of the follow-up part of that question is what actions can others take? So what actions, I guess, can allies take to support women in STEM? All right, I see Aparna, so you can go ahead and share.
I'll start with something that was a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. So The challenge was coming back after maternity leave with a small baby that I'm dropping off at daycare and then driving to work with my box of Kleenex, feeling guilty about the fact that I had to abandon my child and go earn money to feed my child and things of that sort. And a lot of thoughts go through your head when you do that. And I think what helps is women supporting other women when they go through that phase. So I remember in my first week back, another female role model and mentor saw me in the coffee lineup at work, and I was, of course, sleep deprived and probably looked it. And she just, gave me a pat on the shoulder and said, "Oh, hey, you're back. I know it's hard." And she didn't really do anything to fix my sleep deprivation. She just acknowledged the fact that it was hard, and it was like a little catalyst. I was like, yeah, other people get this. This is hard sometimes, but that's okay. Like, other people have done it. She has a good job. She has 3 kids. She figured out how to make this happen. So I can do it too. So sometimes it's just a matter of acknowledging that, certain situations for other women can be difficult, and giving them a bit of a pat on the back and saying, "You got this. You can do this. Other people have done this, and I'm here to support you if you need it." And I think that makes a big difference for women helping other women in STEM.
Yeah, I think that's definitely really important. Thank you. Angelica, go ahead.
So both of the questions kind of tie together really well for me. We were hiring a new quality engineer for my team, and one of the members of my team was saying how we needed to hire someone who fit well, and I was trying to explain to him that I didn't really like the term fit. The term fit kind of propagates kind of boys club situations. You hire what you see, what you know, which is cis straight white males. And in telling him this, he was saying, "Oh, well, Angelica, like I work really well with women. I'm a really great advocate. You're just sensitive to the matter." So I would say my biggest advice for an ally is to check your biases, because no one's a perfect ally. I know I'm not. And so everything is an opportunity to grow and learn. And so listen to those around you. And also it's challenging being a woman in engineering, and you don't necessarily see it. I get mansplained a lot. People mansplain harassment to me at work, whereas I'm like, no, that's great. I know what it is. I do experience it. Checking your biases, because you don't know what the other person is feeling. And it's hard to explain that to others.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really good stuff. Really good things to keep in mind. Absolutely. Brittany, go ahead.
So I have unfortunately experienced many things. It's interesting because when I applied to pursue engineering as a whole, never in my thought that I ever thought that being a woman would affect sometimes things that I was going to face. So essentially an example is during my undergraduate, it was a project or an assignment of some sort. I can't remember exactly what the project was, but essentially we were dividing the tasks, and I volunteered to do a task, and the person that was dividing the task and distributing it through amongst people told me that no, I don't think you can do it because you look dumb, so I'm going to give it to someone else. And I was kind of shocked. I was speechless, and then I was silent for the rest of that portion that we were meeting, dividing the task. And there was 2 other people, and at the time I was so afraid to like say something, and no one mentioned anything. It was just like a dead silence for a minute. And now when I look back at it, I kind of regret not saying anything about it. And I think that kind of like pushed me from like that day on further, that like if I ever face this again, or if I see anyone in that position, regardless what it is, to like stand up or call it out. And I think the actions that we can take to prevent that is to essentially call it out, and not only calling it out, but also giving the other person a chance to realize why it's wrong, and give them that chance to change their behavior. And if that behavior doesn't change, then I guess it'll have to be escalated appropriately. And I think to go forward and kind of make changes towards things that could happen like that again is creating like safe spaces to talk about it, being vulnerable and opening up about these things. And because like my philosophy is, as an engineer, we're taught to problem solve. And so why can we not, if we're problem solving like technical things, anything from like civil building stuff, math, science, whatever it is, why can't we apply that to our everyday life and try to solve, look at it, kind of investigate, why is this happening? And then from there, try to make those changes, So I guess the biggest thing is like, if you ever see that or something like that, like don't be afraid to stand up, But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for sharing that. I feel like a lot of people in this call can relate. And I know you didn't graduate that long ago. I'm in my 4th year of university right now. And like sexism in STEM has come a really long way. Like we've advanced a lot, but there's still so far to go. And especially in the academic environment, it's still a big problem. So it's really good that you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm happy to share like more stories in the future, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem.
Erica, if you wanted to share.
Yeah, so mine, I'll share a little bit of a story pretty quickly. I've been told, actually not too long ago, not only by my boss's boss, but his boss. So like it goes like, multiple levels. I've been told you have to toughen up or the industry will kill you. You can't be, as women, I think we're a bit more, obviously I don't want to generalize, but we tend to like maybe not be as per se tough, where we're a bit more caring, or like we add a little bit of softness, which is honestly a great thing that the industry needs. So obviously being told by your own boss, toughen up, and then the boss ahead of him, toughen up, and something up is just like, I understand. Trust me, I'm pretty tough. I'm in the civil engineer field. I'm in the field with the construction workers. I'm surrounded by men 24/7. I've been told many things. Like I'm made out of a brick, but like it's so, it takes a toll on you. It's just like, just tough enough. And then for another coworker who's also a woman, who's a bit more straight, they're like, you're a little too forward. You have to calm down. You're a little too forward. So it's one of those things where you're being told like toughen up, or if you toughen up, then you're too forward and you got to take a step back. And these are things that are being said from men. So what can the industry do? I will say, speaking from experience, I think it was somebody mentioned it earlier, but making that path for women, or being the change that we need. Believe it or not, senior engineers for women are really, really helping that path for us for recent graduates. And it's so important. And honestly, I hope to do the same. There's so much work to do, obviously, but I know we have a lot of senior engineers and just really, really amazing women here, like very amazing. And I know and I hope that you guys advocate for what's right as we, the young ones, keep trying to advocate, but having that person above is just so important. So yes, also thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that like relates to a really good point that I hear a lot is that, you know, you'll have like a male engineer with certain personality traits, but if there's a female engineer with the same personality traits, you know, you're labeled as like loud or irritating or something like that. So it's definitely a double standard. And anyway, your story just kind of made me think of that. But yeah, thanks. Thanks for sharing. Rachel, you can go.
Yeah, so I echo what a lot of people have already said, which I feel like I say for every question because everyone has great insights here. You know, I would say some of the things that have been challenging besides imposter syndrome is, you know, being in positions where I've felt like I needed to mold to my situation, right? A lot of my teammates were always male, or I've been harassed by my direct like technical lead. So there's a lot of times where I needed to fit a persona of being strong, or I needed to wear certain things. That's something I have always been super cognizant of. I didn't, even to this day, I don't wear a lot of dresses to work. I love dresses. I love makeup. I love jewelry. I love being feminine. I know not every woman aligns in that way. And I think that's part of being a woman, the diverse set of us. But I've always had to be very cognizant of how I present myself to the engineers in the field, as well as people in the C-suite, and what I wear, especially skirts or heels, XYZ. So I would say, you know, that has been challenging to feel like I'm a version of myself sometimes outside of work, which is a little bit more, as some may say, like masculine energy, where I need to fit in with the boys club in order to actually have my voice heard. And I think that's incredibly unfortunate. But I think a perfect example is even here in Silicon Valley, like a lot of the investors, everybody in C-suite is typically like a white cisgender male. It's consistent across the board. If you are pitching to investors, I've typically never seen a woman of color on that board of investors. So it's not even to the point of just being an engineer, it's who invests in startups and who sits on C-suites, who are stakeholders in decisions of what the company builds. I think there are huge issues to address in that regard. And I think Aparna was talking about this, you know, one of the points you were making was, you know, women, you know, we have children, right? We face different challenges than men. That is biology. And I see a lot of women leaving tech before 35. So a lot of women don't even make it to the point of being an investor or being on the C-suite because of things like having to mold to other men, because of harassment, because they can't have children and also have their job, because they get comments from other engineers. Will you be good enough at your job if you're about to give birth in 6 months, right? So I think there's a lot of issues there which propagate into the tech that we're building, right? I also would say, like, my last point on this is, I mean, Facebook is pretty diverse in terms of their C-suite, but look at any other company, right? Like, actually Google's kind of, it's like a 50-50 of diversity there, but not just people of color, but women on C-suites. It's such a low percentage. And in order to build tech that is inclusive, we need to have more women and women of color on those boards, but it cannot happen if women quit before 35 because of the things that we face. I don't know, that was a really sad story to say, but it's just something I've noticed and I think aligns with my own experiences of I've had many moments where I think, I don't want to be in tech. Like, I don't want to have to deal with this. I want to, like, I don't know, have like a cabin in Banff, Alberta, and stay there for like 8 months and just do art. I don't have to deal with all of this, right? So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good story to share. Like, the situations we're sharing are sad, but you know, this is how we make change, I feel like, is by talking about the things that are going on and then kind of making changes in the field. Aparna, did you have anything to add?
Yes, sorry, but I have to add, I know I've had my turn, but I need to go again.
No, no worries.
So,
go ahead.
Rachel, you mentioned this, and Erica, you mentioned this too, but if you work in an environment where you face discrimination, where you face comments like you are too dumb to be assigned this task, fight it. Work in a place that values you. I was talking to an HR representative earlier this week at my company. I work at Nokia, and talking about how I'm not getting enough female candidates in the applicant pool and what we could do about it, etc. But what I want to point out to you is that not every employer will tolerate this. There are employers out there, mine as an example, that has a zero tolerance policy to it. If somebody tells you that you can't do something because you're a woman, or if you're not given an equal opportunity as a man standing right next to you, you need to speak up. And women are a hot commodity these days. Everyone is trying to hire more women. All companies are trying to publish information about gender diversity and equality initiatives they're taking. And one of those initiatives is hiring more women and minority groups into the workforce. So the employers out there want you as women. You have that you fill that bracket that they're trying to hire for. So you don't need to stick with an environment that doesn't value you for who you are. Yes, you might be more emotional. Yes, you might wear heels and look a lot better than the person next to you, but so what? That's your competitive advantage. So use it, and don't stay where you're not valued. You're not worth their time. So that's a more positive note, right?
I agree. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll go to Rosemary, and then we'll probably do some closing remarks after Rosemary's turn. So go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Rachel, your comments really resonated. For one, I have seen a lot of women leave the tech field, especially once they start having kids, right? There's a lot of pressure to be able to perform and to juggle and have that balancing act of home and work life. And I know for myself, I really did not think I'd ever make it back into tech after being out of tech it was probably close to 10 years. I even did my Bachelor of Education degree thinking that there's no way I'd be able to get back in because skill sets start to get stale. Nobody wants to take a chance on someone who's been out of tech for so long and give them an opportunity to retrain or to prove themselves, right? That's why it was so interesting to find the position that I started with at Lumentum. They were proactively looking for people who had been out of tech for a period of time and wanting to give them that second chance. So I applied and got in and worked for 8 months with one team, and then was able to migrate into a different team to do something that was more interesting to me and that I felt was a better fit for what I wanted to do in my future career. So yeah, it's really sad that we're not seeing more of this maybe in other companies, or maybe there's a tide that's turning, right? And that's maybe these opportunities will come back for those of us who had been out of tech for a period of time. It'll be interesting to see how things change especially because of COVID, and people are looking for more employees and engineers to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll end it off with you, Rosemary. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, before I move on to the ending slide, thank you all so much for sharing these perspectives. You know, I've run a few different women engineering events during university, but this one really brought forward some perspectives I hadn't heard before. So thank you all so much for contributing. It means a lot to hear everyone's different perspectives. So yeah, that's about the end of our event. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm glad we had so much participation in this event. It really means a lot. I just like to say thank you to our partners. So they're all listed here. And yeah, thanks again to OSPI as well for reaching out to us and giving us the opportunity to collaborate. really helps reach a wider audience. And for events like these, I feel like that's really important. The more people are aware of the challenges women in STEM face and the good things that they are doing, the more positive change that I think we're going to see in the field. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Bailey, did you have anything to add at all?
Just thank you for everyone for coming out, spending tonight with us, giving your insights. I quite liked all of them. It was interesting to hear all of them, all your different experiences. And yeah, thank you very much for being here with us this evening.